¿Cómo se dice mariposa en inglés?
You say lift or elevator.
¿Seguro?
Of course, you see. Both go floor to floor.
Para fiestas y posadas. Welcome. Today I'm going to be speaking about tequila. Now, no, I'm not promoting alcoholic beverages or anything like that. And I am looking at tequila not as into, say, the history and detail, how it's made, how it tastes, but really just one grammatical aspect, and it's a debate. If tequila as a noun is grammatically masculine or feminine. So is it el tequila or la tequila? And this is something that's debated by some people. I'm not going to say the majority, but enough people for me to have some interest in the topic. Now, before I actually give you the answer, which is a very simple answer that I will give you toward the end, I will be talking about a few little details in hopes that maybe I will spark your interest in researching the topic and getting to know more about the history. Not necessarily the product consumption, just the history, which is quite interesting. Now, there are a variety of sources that you can look up. There's, for example, Drip Capital, Drink Nation, Casa Sausa, and if you look for any tequila brands, they will generally have some form of history. Now, some sources will say tequila started in 1538. Now, what we know as tequila as a spirit, this was only created until Europeans came to the American continent. So the Spanish brought their stills, which it was something they inherited from the Arabs in Spain, and they brought those to America, and that's how they were able to distill the product. Because before that arrival, distillation just did not exist in the American continent. I also find it interesting that tequila, before it was distilled but just fermented, didn't appear until that date, and according to that source, because civilizations have been fermenting a variety of things, whatever they can, trying them out for thousands and thousands of years. So this seems kind of late in the game to be fermenting a plant. But who knows? That being said, if we look up sources, for example, Casa Sauce, they attribute credit for the creation of tequila to Don Zenobio Sausa, but other sources will accredit Pedro Sanchez Tangle in 1695. Now, tequila there was sort of a bootlegging culture for a period of time because the Spanish crown was trying to exploit the production of different spirits and wines in what is now Mexico, back then New Spain. But people still produced tequila, for example, in a clandestine manner. But eventually, tequila was permitted to be produced openly with a tax that favored Jalisco. Now, there are 5 regions in particular that produce tequila, and those are Jalisco, which is the most known, but also Guanajuato, Michoacán, Nayarit, and Tamaulipas. These 5 areas can produce tequila because tequila, as of 1974, is a name of origin. So it's a DOT. Continuing on, moving over here, trying to stay on track. If you've ever wondered why Jose Cuervo or the Cuervo tequilas are so popular in many places in the United States, perhaps because the first registered importation of tequila into the United States was made and documented, I should say, in 1873. This is not to say that tequila was not brought over prior to that. It's just the first official exporting from Mexico, importing into the United States that is documented is from 1873 from Jose Antonio Cuervo. Tequila gained a lot of popularity and became very famous in the international setting after the Chicago Fair in 1893. Now, there are 2 main types of tequila that you have to keep in mind. There is mixed tequila, which is a term referred to 51% sugars coming from agave The other 49 can come from other sources, such as sugar cane or corn syrups, for example. Versus 100% pure tequila, this means all the sugars come from an agave source. Usually about 3 kilograms will make 1 liter of the beverage. And we still have not answered the question whether it's el tequila or la tequila, but we will in a bit. Let's just cover a few little things. In the United States, tequila gained a lot of popularity after the 1960s, and then in 1972, roughly around there, it is believed that the Rolling Stones created a very large image surrounded by tequila, so tequila really came up. And keep in mind that margaritas also made tequila very popular. We already talked about the denotation of origin. In 1994, we have the CRT, who protects the reputation, quality of tequila nationally and internationally. And here, big giant kiss to Mexico, well done. 2006, UNESCO recognizes tequila as a global patrimony. So it's a very, very important recognition. Now, types of tequila or basic things, I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is for you to research because I have one important question to answer. Tequila, there's the clear or white tequilas. It doesn't mean they have absolutely no color. They're just really, really light. You have young or gold. You have reposado, añejo, extra añejo. So the difference here is reposado, this one has been barreled for 2 to 12 months. Añejo, año, a year, at least 1 year to 3, so 12 to 36 months. And then extra añejo will be at least 3 years. This is one of the things that can also create a large variation in price, because in the process you will lose volume in product. It's just part of what happens. A quick little note, tequilas in the United States for some reason tend to be 80 proof, 40%. In Mexico they tend to be 37%, which would be 74 proof. Why? I have no idea. Laws probably, but that's just a little fun fact. So the question now is, and some of you have already figured it out, is it el tequila or la tequila? Now, some people will say, well, it's el tequila. And then you ask why? Oh, well, just because. All right. And some people will say it's la tequila because it ends in an A, so it should be la. All right. And this is an argument that I had with one particular individual who I'm thinking about. This was in Jalisco, because I said el tequila and the individual said la tequila and went on that argument. That argument makes absolutely no sense. It's el tequila. Let me tell you why. Just because a word in Spanish ends in an A doesn't mean it's la automatically. We have el problema, el poeta, el poema, el mapa, el tema. They all end in A and they're all with el. Now, grammatically speaking in Spanish, you generally take the grammatical gender of the general category. So let me give you an example. If we were talking about automobiles and we picked, for example, a Ford, somebody had a Ford pickup, camioneta, then somebody would have una Ford. Why? Because you have una camioneta. You have a pickup, so that's grammatically feminine. That's what you have. Now, let's just say you have some car, a Ford K, a Ford Focus, Ford Fusion, whatever it is, then you would have un coche. So you would have un Ford. So you take that category. The other thing too is if you go to Jalisco, you can have una estrella, you can have a star. It's a type of beer. You can have una sol. Some people might stop and say, whoa, wait, una sol? I thought it was el sol. The shiny object in the sky is el sol. That's the sun. Una sol, that's a type of beer called sol. So that's the difference, right? Now, maybe you're the individual who promises, I don't know, the moon and the stars. I mean, that's all I promise. I would never promise the sun. I wouldn't be able to get it from up there, probably burn myself, even if I went after it at night. But the point is, because in the case of beers, la cerveza is grammatically feminine, all beers are going to be grammatically feminine. una estrella, una sol, una pacífico, right? Notice una pacífico. It's not una pacífica. But in this case with tequila, tequila used to be known as vino mezcal, as a wine. And even if you think of un espíritu, a spirit, they're both still masculine. So we have, for example, different wines and spirits. El cognac, el jerez, el vodka. Oh, that one has an A too, wouldn't you know? So it's el tequila. And the reason why I said maybe you figured it out by looking at the board is it's el tequila. Notice it's blanco. Well, here it's plural. I'm going to use the singular. El tequila blanco. Right? It's not la tequila blanco. That wouldn't make sense. It would have to be blanca. Reposado. Añejo. Right? It's not reposada. It's not añeja. Therefore, tequila is grammatically masculine, and it should be el tequila, as opposed to la tequila, as some people will erroneously say, just because it ends with an A. And if somebody does make that argument, ask them about the other words that I mentioned. El tema, el poeta, el astronauta, el mapa, for example, and see what happens. That being said, I hope I sparked your interest. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.